In 2001, Memphis's GDP was 62 billion, while Nashville's was 67 billion, meaning they were both pretty equal back then. Yet over 20 years later in 2023, Memphis's was only 69 billion, while Nashville's was 136 billion, in a completely different stratosphere. But why is this?
Police releasing video tonight of who they believe is responsible for a shooting on Beale Street.
I mean, they're the two biggest cities in Tennessee, and if you look at their metro population differences, Memphis isn't that far off, with a metro population of some 1.3 million people, while Nashville is at a little over 2 million. In fact, Memphis actually had 100,000 more people than Nashville at the start of the 21st century. So what gives? Well, the answer is everything. To arrive at how these two Tennessean cities became economically opposite, we have to look at Tennessee's economic history as a whole, from its early days as a frontier territory into what it is today. Nestled in between the Appalachian Mountains and the Mississippi River, Tennessee's economic prosperity can be attributed to its geographical advantage, making it a historically strategic location for trade and commerce. It also means there's a wealth of natural resources. Fertile farmland, timber, coal, and minerals have laid out the foundations for strong agriculture and mining industries across the state. Tennessee was primarily agrarian in its early days, with cotton and tobacco being its dominant crops. The earliest Tennessean settlers were mostly made up of self-sustaining farmers who produced many of their own goods through household manufacturing. In the 18th century, textile and manufacturing plants started popping up across the state. At this time, the state's earliest manufacturing industries focused on utilizing local raw materials. Although some early ironworking operations were being established along Tennessee's rivers in this period, their production levels were nowhere as nationally significant as New Jersey or Pennsylvania. But this didn't matter too much, because economic, political, and social power remained tied with land-owning and cash crops. This all changed after the Civil War though, when the majority of Southern leaders started advocating for stronger economic partnerships with the Northern territories. This renewed attitude towards a unified nation attracted a wealth of investments from industrialists in the North and from foreign countries as well. Tennessee's largest cities felt these investments the most, especially in its most logistically strategic towns, Nashville and Memphis. Since then, both Nashville and Memphis have solidified their status as the major trade centers of Tennessee, being established in separately strategic locations. This is what set the stage for the reasons the disparity began. See, they may be in the same state, but they're associated with two separate regions being on separate ends of Tennessee. The states that Memphis is directly adjacent to, Arkansas and Mississippi, continue to be poor agrarian economies with minimal development. Because of this too, people can live in those two states and not pay higher city taxes while still reaping the benefits of living near a major city. In this sense, the metro is culturally identifiable with the Old South. And while Memphis is near the Mississippi River, which played a role in its initial growth due to the tons of industry and manufacturing that were based along it, this boost eventually wore off as industries became less dependent on the river for transportation and thus moved elsewhere. Meanwhile, Nashville sits in a fast-growing region with cities like Atlanta, Raleigh, and Charlotte, making it part of a professional class urbanizing New South. Nashville being in the middle of the state probably helped it a lot to become the state capital, which, with the presence of the state government, has stabilized and boosted its economy through government jobs and related services, which brings in a ton of money and tourism that Memphis can't get, as well as a lot more political power. The central location of it also made it a major transport hub between rail and trucking due to its central southeast location. Nashville's growth was also boosted by its proximity to several fast-growing boom towns, such as Franklin and Murfreesboro, as well as bordering the state of Kentucky, which is known for its strong agricultural, metals, and manufacturing industries. Nashville's connectivity to these boomtowns have given the city a steady inflow of local and international migrants, along with a healthy concentration of suburbs in between the urban sprawl. The diversity of its demographics is one of the pillars that have become key to Nashville's seamless transition towards a highly diversified economy. That's why today, Nashville has become one of the fastest growing cities in America. In fact, it's now considered as one of the 4 Sunbelt cities that could be the next economic powerhouses of the country, along with Dallas, Houston, and Miami. But if we're to look into what this economic powerhouse actually is, well, it's multifaceted. For starters, one of the city's major pillars is its healthcare industry, which I actually never realized. Nashville is known as the healthcare capital of the country, with the industry's deep roots dating as far back as the 19th century. Nashville is now home to approximately 500 healthcare companies that generate more than $92 billion annually. As of 2021, more than half of all privately owned hospital beds in the US were operated by Nashville-based healthcare companies, according to data from the city's Chamber of Commerce. This concentration of healthcare entities in the city has created a robust ecosystem that has attracted supporting businesses, ranging from healthcare technology to insurance companies. Nashville's healthcare industry now contributes more than 333,000 jobs to the local economy annually, and the presence of this well-paid workforce has boosted other sectors as well, such as real estate and retail. On the educational side, Nashville also has it all. Belmont, Lipscomb, and of course the world-renowned Vanderbilt University, all in its heart, has given the city yet another nickname, the Athens of the South, as the city has always prioritized higher education. And now, more than 20 colleges and universities call Nashville home. The city has more or less 100,000 students at a time, with 60% of its graduates choosing to stay in the area. These institutions give it a young, educated talent pool to build off of, which then plays a crucial role in attracting top businesses to the city along with their extremely business-friendly economy. For this, Nashville has been blessed with pretty good leadership. Mayors Bill Purcell and Carl Dean were in office for a combined 14 years. And both men had relatively stable and popular administrations. Whether you hate them or love them, both men garnered at least 79% of the vote in their election bid for a second term. So they were clearly doing something right, as that's a huge number. And we can even go back a mayor too, to Phil Bredesen, who served from 1991 to 1999, whose leadership forever changed Nashville. As mayor, he added more than 440 new teachers, built 32 new schools, and renovated 43 others. He also recognized downtown Nashville as a potential hub for tourism and entertainment, initiating several projects that brought the now Tennessee Titans to Nashville, and got them an NHL team too, the Nashville Predators. This meant that Nashville had good mayors for a combined 24 years. Phil also became the 48th governor of Tennessee from 2003 to 2011, having been re-elected with almost 70% of the vote. All this is to say that Nashville was blessed with some pretty good leadership, and they clearly had a plan and executed it well. Then there's the cultural side. Nashville has long been known as the music city or country music capital of the world. It's the nicknames they're most known by. From country and gospel to rock and rap, music artists across the country have made their homes in Nashville. This has been especially apparent in the past 2 decades as country music has grown into a national darling. And given Nashville is home to the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, along with the CMA Fest, the biggest country music festival nationally, this just multiplies everything. There were 90,000 daily attendees from all 50 states and a record-breaking 51 countries at the 2023 festival, a 12% increase from 2022's attendance. The city remains traditionally Southern in its sensibility, but it's taken on the radiance of the present. On a Venn diagram, the place where conservative Christians and hipsters overlap would be today's Nashville. Music is the bedrock of Nashville's economy, but everything really started to go crazy when pop culture media was poured on top of it. Let me explain. Pop culture is highly influential to commerce. Clothing worn by celebrities like the Kardashians are influencing what every retail store in the mall all over the US carries. So when you think about the TV show Nashville, that blew up nationally and has literally millions of viewers, it plays into the romanticism of Nashville. This is the reason why it morphed into a destination for bachelorette parties too. It's super similar to what the primetime soap opera Dallas did for the Texas city in the 80s, if you remember. That's how, in 2023, Nashville was named as the 5th best-performing major city in the United States, according to the Milken Institute, an index that was based on 3 major indicators: a city's labor market performance, access to economic opportunities, and high-tech impact. In that same year, Nashville was named by the Wall Street Journal as the #1 hottest job market in the country, and placing 6th in net migration among Gen Z. So its strength speaks for itself. And now there's Memphis. As I've mentioned earlier, it was only a couple decades ago that these sibling cities were relatively equal. While Memphis isn't doing absolutely terrible, the stark disparity with Nashville can be easily seen on street level. And this of course comes down to their early beginnings as a bustling river port, having served as an important trade center for lumber and cotton. But unlike Nashville, Memphis didn't end up being as diverse in its industries, which can be primarily blamed on its past as a plantation-based economy. Memphis was also located much farther from other boomtowns back in the day. Instead, as I said, Memphis has been surrounded by Arkansas and Mississippi, 2 primarily agrarian states that were made up of seemingly endless plantations. Because of this, Its population mainly consisted of slave labor that worked on tobacco and cotton farms during the peak of the city's plantation economy. Eventually, the end of the Civil War brought about the emancipation, creating the sprawl of African American neighborhoods in South Memphis, which would eventually become the hotbed of its cultural heritage today. But this transition didn't go down smoothly for obvious reasons, and the city of Memphis witnessed violent racial tensions and riots over the decades. This, of course, led to an exodus of some wealthy citizens known as the White Flight. But it also led to people being turned off from investing in the city more. The legacy of racial inequality is still present in the city today. See, Nashville is not operated nearly the same way Memphis is. Nashville was merged and consolidated into one big metropolitan area many years ago. You don't have this them versus us mentality, but right now you have Memphis and then the suburbs, or Bartlett, Germantown, and Collierville. Each of these suburbs have their own governments and police departments. When a lot of capital leaves the city for the suburbs, it can easily cause a stagnant economy. And as we know, poverty breeds crime, and crime is insanely rampant there. I mean, it's arguably the most dangerous city in the US. Just look at how much more violent crime there was than second place Detroit in 2022. This creates a cycle. What business wants to invest there when it's riddled with crime? And what do families or young adults do because there's no opportunity as well as crime? And if you look at the ever-decreasing numbers of their police department, this shows no signs of changing. In education, they're underfunded and undereducated. They have nothing of comparison to the institutions Nashville has. Memphis's education system continues to suffer from unequal access to education and a high turnover rate of qualified educators. In contrast to Nashville's good leadership, Memphis had William Harrington for roughly the same amount of time, who, while he did some good, mostly hurt the city instead. Memphis has some things going for it though. I mean, it's called America's distribution center for a reason. They're home to the world headquarters and super hub of FedEx, handling up to almost 500,000 packages every hour from all over the world, about to be sent out to their final destinations all over America. FedEx continues being the largest employer in Memphis, and nearly all major logistics companies such as UPS, DHL, and USPS have a service hub set up in the heart of Memphis. This robust infrastructure supports over 100,000 jobs, or around 17% of the city's entire workforce, leading the share of infrastructure employment across all major US cities. So, Memphis provides hassle-free access and the most cost-effective distribution and logistics services in the nation. Of course, Memphis also has their own cultural draw similar to Nashville. I mean, it's literally called the birthplace of rock and roll thanks to Sun Studio, where many iconic talents such as Elvis Presley, B.B. King, and Johnny Cash got their start. Today, it just doesn't have the glitz and glamour of Nashville, New York, or LA. But in terms of history, culture, and live music, it definitely does. Tourists alone pump up to $3.2 billion into the local economy yearly, and it is estimated that 20% of that revenue is generated by its music industry. Aside from these two industries, Memphis also has a strong healthcare industry of its own, just like Nashville, but in a different way. Memphis's medical device manufacturing sector is one of the largest among similarly sized metros in the country. There are 81 medical device companies situated in the greater Memphis region alone, providing 18,000 jobs and contributing $4 billion to the local economy every year. If they want to catch up to Nashville, or well, at least grow, then they need to foster more diverse industries, because the reliance in logistics and manufacturing is part of the reason they're behind Nashville, who have even made big inroads in niche industries like Christian publishing and slowly growing in tech. Memphis is already starting to diversify in STEM though. Their IT sector has contributed $2.4 billion to gross regional product in 2022, a 50% growth from 10 years ago. And towards the end of 2030, the city aims to increase the number of STEM graduates, with the goal of awarding 20,000 STEM degrees annually. In the end, Memphis is growing in what it needs to in order, but if it never stops the crime problem above everything else, then nothing will change. It doesn't help either that while Nashville has had their hit Nashville series portraying their city in a good way, Memphis got The First 48, a show about homicide detectives. Although these things may appear small, media representations of the two cities undoubtedly snowball into influencing possible decisions in regard to making the move there or somewhere different. As of right now, Nashville just has everything going for it, and it shows no signs of slowing down. But what do you think? Can Memphis one day catch Nashville? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.